Alright. So you want 4 stars. Maybe you want to go Oxbridge. Or maybe you just don't want to get disowned. Because that's the exact same thing I was going for at the start of year 12. But how to get there? And so I turned to YouTube. But the thing is, there was tons of advice. Some good, some lesser. But they all mostly gave the same advice. And they all pretty much tell what worked for them. But for me, I just didn't see the value of A-levels. I just didn't care about the grades. I'd rather spend time on something I was passionate about, like editing the video. So what I wanted to know was how to get the highest grades with the minimum amount of work possible. So then throughout the year, I experimented. I used all the techniques I learned, all the methods, to see which ones actually worked and which one were complete BS. And after a long year, with a lot of lockdowns, I finally got the grades I wanted. And this video will show you exactly how I did it. Now, unlike other A-level videos on YouTube, this video will only give you the foundational techniques that will work for everyone. Now, this does mean that I won't be going in depth and won't be giving specifics. But that's up to you to fine-tune these to your own specific subjects and weaknesses. Okay, so now if you really want to work for the least amount of time possible, you need to be efficient. This means that 1 hour of this is way better than 5 hours of this. The key here is focus. That means eliminating all distractions, putting away your phone and just getting to work. When you feel like your attention is draining, just take a break. You've earned it. Okay, now this is a really crucial skill that any student should have, especially in this age. The truth is that not everyone has the greatest of teachers. Some teachers are good, some just don't teach that well. And especially with the recent lockdowns, not everyone will get the same quality of teaching. Well, lucky for you, the internet has loads of resources. Whether it's videos or websites, you can literally find anything on any subject. And they're all high quality and concise, unlike most lessons. Okay, here's a big one. So this is where most people go wrong and waste the most time. I did too. So what you need to do now is stop just taking notes all the time, stop repeating notes. You need to be memorizing the notes. The key here is flashcards. Flashcards is the key to top grades, and it's all backed by science. If you want to know about how I recommend looking at these videos on YouTube. So what I used to do, which cost me loads of time, was first make the notes, then make a mind map, then convert that to digital notes in Google Docs. Then I would make flashcards of those in Anki. Now that took extremely ages, especially making the flashcards, and you can massively cut this time by using this process. First, look at the specification. You should always look at the specification before lessons to make sure your teacher is actually teaching you the proper content. Secondly, the flashcards. Okay, now for this, I highly recommend Remnote. I mean, you could always use just pen and paper for this, but if you want to be efficient, use Remnote. Remnote is basically a flashcards app and a noting app built in one. But when I switched to Remnote, oh man, I saved so many hours on this. Okay, you need to base your notes solely on the specification. After that, you need to collect information from as many different sources as possible. Different textbooks, websites, or your own teacher's notes. And the key here is only to take down the notes of the content that you understand. This is to make sure you're not just memorizing information without actually understanding it. If you don't understand it, then don't note it down. This is basically the Feynman technique I mentioned earlier. Okay, so once you made Remnote cam, you need to open up a new document. So how we structure this is first use the question, then use a double semicolon to make a flashcard, and then write the answer after it. So while you're making those, you need to have all your textbooks and websites open up next to you, while using the specification to structure your questions. So once we're done with the flashcards, you can go to the queue where your flashcards are, and I can go through them. Okay, so for mitochondria, you need to define it. And once you've defined it, you can click show answer. So now there are 4 options here, depending on how well you've recalled it. For now, let's click we are able to recall. Now for example, if you get it wrong, you can just click unable to recall, and that will go back into the queue. So now it's back in the queue. This time, if you answer right, then you can move it on. And that is pretty much it. Okay, so now you've memorized all your notes and it's creeping towards exam season. Now the key here is past papers. So you think that memorizing all the content will be enough, but recently it's not. Because the government has changed exams, so it focuses less on your knowledge and more on how you apply your knowledge to different scenarios. Now to properly understand how the exam works and how the examiner is what you think, you need to first do the past papers and actually mark them. I'd also highly recommend reading the examiner's report for each recent paper. past papers are the best way to develop those soft skills like analyzing and applying to context and essay writing. Okay, so now you've actually got the grades, you need to go apply to uni with them. So for the uni application process, there are three main things as described in this book. It has three key parts. The first is personal statement quality. The second is your admission test scores, and the third is the interview score. So if you do well in each of these three stages, then you're basically guaranteed a place. First, do your research of all the different possibilities. I mean, there's really not just one path. I mean, you could study abroad, you can do an apprenticeship, try taking risks. If you want to go in the traditional uni route, then you should focus on what will get you into your course. Now for Oxbridge, this means first finding which admission tests that they need for your specific subject, then just grinding them. Just literally do those past papers until you get this high grades. Okay, personal statement, don't sweat it that much unless you're doing something like medicine. I mean, just personal statement is basically just to see whether you're actually interested in the subject. And the interview is basically a mix of seeing if you're actually passionate about the subject and if you have the ability to think critically and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's basically, I guess, have fun revising.